Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Illusion. This is your host Elijah, and today I want to ask you guys a question: who holds the most power here in America? Is it the president, Congress, the Supreme Court, or the people? On paper, we say it's the people, and in the Constitution it starts with "we the people." But when the president can mobilize the military to silence the peaceful protests, not because of national security, but because it's his birthday, it begs the question, who's really in charge? To understand this contradiction, I traveled to Washington, D.C., a city meant to embody our democratic ideals in stone and marble, and monuments to represent our sacrifice, struggle, and power. But walking among them, you often wonder if King, Lincoln, and the others could see the America of today. Would they say it's the future that they fought for, or was it lost? We start our investigation at the Lincoln Monument. Now, if you don't know who he is, here's the Cliff Notes. Freed most of the slaves under the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, but let's give it a buck. He was pressured by abolitionists, lobbyists, war, and it was political strategy. Pushed for the 13th Amendment, and he was the 16th president. Now, his ideals back then is honestly not so far off to what we debate today. Abraham Lincoln believed that, as in his writing, the legitimate object of government is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done, but cannot do at all, or cannot so well do for themselves in their separate and individual capacities. Old writing, but which basically means the government should intervene when it's necessary to achieve goals or address problems. Now, what this means in modern day society is that the government should provide things like public infrastructure, safety, and support to people who need it, while maintaining individual autonomy. I can't pronounce that word, so yeah. Knowing this, how does it reflect today? In today's society, we do see somewhat of what Lincoln wanted. While the individual part is a little lost, the government does still provide people certain things that they can't do on their own. Programs like EBT, financial aid, Social Security, and Medicare exist because not everyone can survive on their own. And taking a recent look, let's take a look at COVID. Here, the government stepped in and provided stimulus checks, rent assistance, vaccines, and free testing, which all came from a crisis and a collective people needed support. While Lincoln's vision still shows up, there is a big problem. It's inconsistent and oftentimes unfair. Take for the very recent example, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, aka the Big Beautiful Bill. Now, this bill is 900 pages long, and I highly doubt lawmakers read it. But from my understanding, somehow lawmakers still managed to include cuts to SNAP, housing aid, and among other things, while it is really targeting poor people and single parents, disabled, low income, and is really only helping to rich get richer, because that's all the big bill is really getting at. But that's the now. So I asked why things are this way. And so I turned to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, if you don't know who he is and you're black, we're gonna have to fight. But here's the quick notes. Most notable for his I Have a Dream speech for equality and justice, Montgomery bus boycott, which led to the Supreme Court ruling that segregation on buses is deemed unconstitutional, and leader of the civil rights movement. If it wasn't obvious, King's views are based on democratic ideas that power should serve everyone, not just people at the top. He believed in equality across race, class, and background, and he wasn't afraid to call out the systems that stood in the way, which was why he was jailed over 28 times. Wow. See, he was speaking the truth, and the truth makes people uncomfortable. And when you have people uncomfortable, consequences follow. In his words, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in a moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And King was challenged at every turn until his assassination. Today, we honor him with a holiday and his name on streets, posters, and walls. And his message now reflects a significant change to improve what has happened in the past and today. But voting rights are still under attack, economic injustice still persists, police brutality remains, and poverty and the wealth gap keeps growing. My thoughts are we can trace this disparity to way back when through the promises made at the start of our country. We now take a look at George Washington. Alright, so quick break. I had to go change my camera batteries because it died and now it is a new day. Back with the video. Here we are at the Washington Monument. It's massive, it's big, and quite literally towers over everything in DC, just like his legacy. Now, if you don't know who he is, I don't know what to tell you. But here we go. He was the first U.S. president, led the American Revolution, helped write the Constitution, and set the standard for generations. Now, George Washington, what's more to say? He set the standard for generations, what would be America today. But he also enslaved over 500 people, chased an escaped slave. He signed 2 slave laws, Fugitive Slave Act and the Slave Trade Act, and treated them as any other person would back then. So this monument represents freedom. Freedom from who? Washington stood for liberty, national unity, and freedom. And you cannot deny that he built the system that we're living in today. The presidency, the union, and the federal government. But also upheld a system to deny freedom to people he owned. Now, towards the end of his life, he wrote private letters admitting that slavery was fundamentally wrong and freed his own enslaved after his death. Similarly, other political figures like Thomas Jefferson owned over hundreds of slaves, 600, and benefited from it at the same time. And then he also said it's moral depravity and wrote the famous, all men are created equal. Keep in mind, this was a time when slavery was easily accessible and expected. If you grew up in Virginia, it was a society where owning slaves was accepted and normal. See, slavery was common back then, but it doesn't excuse it. It shows why powerful men didn't challenge it and built systems that benefited them. Earlier, we talked about how the government can support or ignore people depending on who's in power, and that starts here. We now take a look at the U.S. Capitol building, where U.S. Congress debates, drafts, and votes on laws. And in my opinion, they arguably hold the most power, and they have the power to quickly change millions of lives. See, while the president is front and center, Congress has the power to repeal, block, and delay just about anything. One senator can stall a bill, a committee chair can throw it out, and once the law is passed, good or bad, it affects all of us. If Congress is supposed to reflect us, why do so many feel unrepresented? And now we end where many people think the power is, the White House. To keep it short, it's the office of the president and the face of the U.S. government. It's where bills are signed, speeches are made, and press briefings are held. Usual president stuff. Powerful, yes, but not absolute. See, while the president can do a lot like veto laws, issue executive orders, and even direct military action, the real big change happens still in Congress. And if Congress says no, whatever the president wants to get done, ain't getting done. Even if the president wants to get something done, he still runs into a lot of problems blocking him. Courts and lobbyists, to name a few. For example, you may not know that during COVID, stimulus checks was a bill that needed to be assigned and approved by Congress. Even beyond this, you still have corporate donors and media giants influencing political decision behind the scenes. And if you ask me, that's real power. And as we bring this to a close, we started with the question, who really holds the power here in America? Is it the president? Sometimes. Is it Congress? Most certainly, but it's not always in the people's interests. The people? Supposedly, but only in larger active groups that are paying attention. And the rest, people behind the curtains, their influence is definitely at play. When we looked at Lincoln and King, remember this. They're both assassinated for standing up for civil rights and challenging a system to only serve a few. These men wanted real change, and they paid the price for it. Looking at the broader aspect, we see a country built on ideas and its contradictions. So next time someone tells you that we the people hold the power, remind them that power shifts. It is not always in the right hands. See ya. Washington stood for liberty, national unity. Bro. Uh.